If they running their mouth, then if they running their mouth, then they looking for trouble. Ran right up in the knowledge, now they back in the huddle. See, they know we can fight, new content every week. Me and Dr. Clyde, keep on bringing the heat. Now they know that we're driven, and they know we ain't quitting. Yoshi and Dr. Winner, keep on bringing the energy. Unity. See, they know we ain't stopping, and they know they got problems, and they ran out of options. If they know we got a problem, can't let it go unsolved. Bring back learning, Afrocentric history, we see tomorrow. Karma's karma, I say what I say, I hear underwater. Till I see I fall off, then I bring y'all up on note. I'm back up on my Clyde winners, 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 Clyde winners. Divine winters, Clyde winters, mind bender, Clyde winters. I'm Richard, ride with ya, master teacher, create masters, Clyde winters. Give respect to the elder, Clyde winters. Somebody else they living for me. I told you somebody else they looking for me. I think there's somebody else they looking for me. I think there's somebody else they looking for me.
We have to live by heart. We have to live by heart. I have not done wrong. I have not robbed. I have not stolen. I have not drank. I have not told lies. I have not stolen food. I was not stolen. I have not fornicated with the fornicator. I have not caused anyone to weep. I have not dissembled. I have not transgressed. I have not discussed secrets. I have brought no lawsuits. I have not wronged the population. I have not struck kill. I have not transgressed the law. I have not been hunted. Except what I'm talking about on the tongue. I have not made extolling. I have not bragged. I have not cursed. I have not been violent. I have not confounded truth. I have not been impatient. I have not cursed against.
Dr. Winter's legacy is a testament to the power of knowledge and the unyielding spirit of exploration. His impact is felt worldwide, as he shares and enlightens at conferences, symposiums, and collaborative projects. His voice is a beacon in the academic world, challenging, inspiring, and always educating. His journey reminds us that the quest for knowledge is never-ending, and its impact is timeless. Dr. Winters teaches us to challenge the narratives and to learn with an open mind. As he always says, B1 is not a group, it's a lineage. Let his story inspire everybody to pursue knowledge relentlessly and to always seek the truth. Now let us welcome in the grandfather of research, the Trill OG himself, the Honorable Dr. Clyde Winters.
Let the researcher do the research. Oh, no, no. I don't get a kick out of telling lies. Let the researcher do the research. Oh, no, no. Spent years studying the times. Let the researcher do the research. Yeah, yeah. Black first, with strength we rise. Yeah. Let the researcher do the research. Yeah. Uniting truth and kill the lies. Let the researcher do the research. I'll learn to debunk my own craft. Respect is all that I ask. I was sent here to finish my task, to become the greatest researcher, and that's who I am, Dr. Wexus. Yeah. Na 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 na. Let the research gotta tell it lies. Let the researcher do the research. Yeah. I spent years studying the tides. Let the researcher do the research. Yeah. Black first, with strength we rise. Let the researcher do the research. Yeah. Uniting truth and kill the lies. Be one, be one, be one. Be one to win this fight. We must unite. Stand up for the righteous and let your skin shine bright. Be one, be one.
What up, though? What up, though? What up, though? How's everybody doing today? Welcome to another edition of Black History Gems. Yes. I try to come to you, family, every Thursday with the Black History Gems. How you doing, Karen? How you doing, the Sister Shanice? Sister Shanice, what up, though? You know, I loved your show yesterday that you had with the King, and you guys were discussing some important stuff. Thank you, Sister Shanice, for sharing the world with the knowledge that we need. And that is beautiful. Everybody check out the Sister Shanice show, because the Sister Shanice show is very relevant. It's always talking about Africa, the motherland. So make sure you check it out. But again, welcome everybody. Today I got another show for you. Yes. Today I'm going to be sharing with you an aspect of history that I really like. You know, a lot of people they mention the fact that I've been interested in the Olmecs for many years, and the way I got interested in the Olmecs was back in the day when I was in college. What happened was that when I was in college, in a sense, I was taking African history. And, my professor was Charles Stewart. Charles Stewart, he taught most of the history topics at the University of Illinois back in the day. I think he's retired now. Well, he should be retired, But anyway, it was kind of cool. But I found it very interesting. And the reason I found it very interesting is because the fact is that luckily I had studied the French language in high school for 4 years. And back then, when you wanted, in a sense, to study Afro-American history, you had to be able to read French, because many of the books that we had in class, B1, baby, because many of the books that we had to read in class, they were in French. And so then, because I had read the French language, I could get involved in this, and this is very important. And I came across, the work of Ivan Van Sertima and some other brothers, and Leo Weiner. And Leo Weiner, he wrote a book called Africa and the Discovery of America. This was a very exciting book to me. What made it so exciting is that he presented evidence that many of the so-called Aztec people, the Mexicas, the Aztec people, and probably spoke the Manding language. He also had in his book an artifact from Tuxtla, Mexico. And this artifact from Tuxtla, Mexico was very interesting, because when I looked at it, I noticed the inscriptions on it. And the inscriptions on the Tuxtla, artifact They were in the Mandi language. I said, damn, here's Dr. Leo Viner, and he's talking about, in a sense, the Mandi people, the Mandi influence on many of the Mayan languages and the Aztec languages. And then in addition to this, he shows this artifact, and this artifact has these inscriptions written in the Mandi script, the Vai script. The Mandi had several scripts, but this was in the Vai script, and I said, damn, you know what? I bet I could read those things. So what I did is that I studied the Mandi language, and I said, damn, hey, I could do it. And then in a sense, what I noticed is that I found out about the Indus Valley writing. And then I noticed, damn, these are the same inscriptions. So what I did is I decided I was going to compare the Mandi languages to the Dravidian language, mainly Tamil, a little Telugu, but mainly Tamil. And when I compared, I said, damn, I can read these things too. And see, this is the thing that you have to understand, is that our ancestors have left us very valuable information. But this information, they wanted us to read it, they want us to read it. But the European tells you can't read these things. It's not that you can't read it. He can't read it. And the reason that he can't read it is because the fact, in a sense, is that he wants to try to deny that African people had their own languages, that African people, in a sense, created a lot of, had influences over in the Americas. But I know this to be true. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk about the Mandi children, And, I want to talk about the Olmec children. What I found is that many people, in a sense, have tried to associate the Olmec people with the Egyptians. No, the Olmec people were not, descendants of the Egyptians. No, the Olmec people, in a sense, they were from the Mandi tribe in West Africa. Yes, the Mandi had an extensive diaspora back in the day. The Mandi seem to have been a very large population in West Africa, Central Africa, and even all the way into the, Saharan Africa and around the Sahel region. And as a result, they influenced a whole lot of ancient cultures, and they even made it to Americas, you see. And because the fact, in a sense, that I know that these people are related, it gives me insight into their children. Yes. Many of us don't understand is that children play an important role in the culture of Black people. And the reason that children play an important role in our culture is because it's children. It's our children that we do many things and learn about, because it's through our children, in a sense, that we can understand and we influence the future. Because see, it's your children that will carry on your dynasty, will carry on your legacy. Yes. You always think in terms of, when you hear the word dynasty, you think about, ancient China. No, you have a dynasty that should be carried on too. And that those individuals that carry on your dynasty are your children. That's one of the reasons that Europeans have always, in a sense, tried to separate Black people from their children throughout the world, because he understood, in a sense, is that the future is the children. If you can separate the children from the adults, if you can separate the children from their ancestors, then the children, in a sense, cannot carry on. But look, here's some Olmec artifacts. And then these Olmec artifacts, you can clearly see, in a sense, that they had a great love for their children. And they recognize the important role of children in their society. And so what I'm going to do today is that we're going to talk about it. Let's see, Jan Blake says, archaeologists didn't know about the Indus Valley civilization in 1900. So you never know what they will find about the Olmecs. That's true. They're discovering new stuff. But see, one of the things that makes it very difficult to really do a lot of archaeological research in the Olmec region is because the fact, in a sense, is that Mexico is a tropical area. And because Mexico is a tropical area, artifacts, skeletons, many things, in a sense, are they disintegrate in the soils in the jungle regions. But luckily, we have been able to find many monuments, and many monuments, as you can see in this picture from Mexican monuments, you can see that children played an important role. So that's what I want to do today, is I want to discuss with you the the Olmec children and their influence in the Americas. You know, the Olmec children were very highly respected. The Olmec children, in a sense, were seen as the future. They were seen, and even though we have these so-called big heads, we also have a lot of artifacts. Yes, we have a lot of artifacts that show the children. It depicts the children of the Olmecs. Because, see, African people, Black people, we love our children. Or we should, because, see, it's our children who represent our future. After I do this presentation, I'm going to put the slides in my Patreon. Go to my Patreon to see the slides. I love my Patreon because the members of my Patreon, they provide me with the resources to be able to buy new books, to be able, in a sense, to read articles and newspapers that are behind paywalls. Yes. Much of the most important research, the latest research, is used behind a paywall because it's in either a journal, a scientific journal, or a book. And so often I have to buy these new books, or I have to buy these scientific journal articles so I can make these presentations to you every week. You see, you know, they're not done just willy-nilly. They're not done, you know, in a haphazard way. You have to have money in the way you and my Patreon followers, they give me the monies necessary to be able to buy new books, buy articles. Thank you, Patreon. Please join my Patreon. You can find me at Twitter at Dr. Clyde Winters 8. And, you know, you're here on my YouTube channel. Don't just come here. No. Don't just come here every Thursday just to hear me talk about the latest history finding. I have over 400 videos. I have over 400 videos on this site. And these videos, they discuss every aspect of Black history. And if you look at these videos, you'll be, you'll really know what's going on. So make sure that you not only come here to see my my weekly presentation on Black History Gems, but also, in a sense, come and, look at my other videos. And also, if you're not a subscriber right now, press that subscriber button, press that bell so you can be notified. Join me, support me. I need your support to be able to do this great work. And, thank you for joining. Don't forget, in a sense, this is my history site. And here I have so many videos on all aspects of Black history. You can find me on Twitter at Dr. Clyde Winters 8, and you can order my books. Yes. Order one of my books. Order all 50 of my books. Yes. Order all 50 of my books from Amazon.com. And when you order these books, you know what? You're going to be elated because you're going to have the up-to-date information on what's happening in the world. So check out my books at Amazon.com. Don't be late. Don't be square. Get there on time. Get your books. Written by Dr. Clyde Winters. What is FBA? FBA is not a group. FBA is not an organization. FBA is a lineage. A lineage is lineal descent from an ancestry or pedigree. As a result, we are descendants of the Black Europeans, African and Aboriginal Blacks who built the United States. Yes, a lot of times, in a sense, people try to say, just because, people try to say that anybody that talks about Black people on the very continents, they try to call you a Pan-Africanist as if a Pan-Africanist, calling you a Pan-Africanist is a bad word. No, there were Black people on every continent. Yes, there were Black people on every continent, but the research shows that although there are Black people on every continent, the original homeland of the Black race, the so-called Negro race, was Africa, you see? And even though, in a sense, Aboriginal Black people have been in these United States, at least the archaeological evidence shows, for at least 50,000 years, that doesn't mean, in a sense, that they didn't come from Africa. And the reason that our ancestors in the Americas came from Africa was because of the Ice Age. I know many of you have probably heard about the Ice Age. The Ice Age had lasted for over 100,000 years. Then we had an intermediate period. Then during the Younger Dryas period, we had another Ice Age that entered that entered the Americas, and so that many people could not really migrate across land into North America and South America until after 10,000 BC, as the ice began to melt. Because of the fact that it took this long for people to be able to make an overland migration into the Americas, the majority of Black people that came to these United States came by boat. And they came by boat, in a sense, to the Americas. But you had to remember, in a sense, that there has been Black people in the Americas for over 100,000 years. 100,000 years, you see. So when various African people came over here bringing pyramid building and other things, they brought these new ideas. They brought this technology to Black people who are already in the Americas, you see. But originally our ancestors, came from, Africa. B1 is acknowledging your Black, African, and Aboriginal ancestry and mod, not heritage. What is B1? B1 is Black first. What is B1? B1 is unity with mod. What is B1? B1 is Black and brilliant. Yes, you're Black and brilliant, baby. You're B1. We're going to talk today about the Olmec children. Here's a picture. And these are diverse images. And in these varied images of Olmec adults, you can see that they're holding children. And so this can give you the evidence that children were held in high esteem by the Olmec people. The Olmec spoke the Mandi language and practiced the Mandi culture. In Mandingo, also called Maninka culture, which is part of the broader Mandi ethnic group found primarily in West Africa, children play a significant role in the family, social, and cultural structure. Their roles and upbringing are deeply tied to the values, traditions, and communal lifestyle of the Mandingo people. We're going to discuss, in a sense, various aspects of the Olmec children and the Olmec culture based upon the evidence from the Mandi people in West Africa and what we found over here in this country. If you want to find out more about the Mandi people in the Americas, get my book, The Olmec Language and Literature. This book will tell you what the language of the Olmec, which is an aspect of Mandinka, tell you it has some of the inscriptions and you can read them. Atlantis in Mexico is a detailed discussion, yes. Atlantis in Mexico is a detailed discussion of, in a sense, the Olmec people, their culture, their civilization. I talk about the calendar that they created. I talk about, in a sense, their various influences. And so, get these books, The Olmec Language and Literature, and also get Atlantis in Mexico, because these books, in a sense, will help you to understand the influence and the key role of these people in the Americas. I have another book too, but we're not going to do it. What was the social and family structure of the Olmec? Let's discuss that. The Olmec families often follow an extended family structure. Children are considered part of the larger community and are raised not only by their biological parents, but also by extended family members, such as grandparents, aunts, uncles, and older siblings. It goes back to what we used to say back in the 90s, that it takes a village to raise a child. From a young age, Olmec children were taught to respect their elders and fulfill their roles within the family. They were expected to contribute to household chores and agricultural activities, preparing them for their future responsibilities. Some people, in a sense, also during this period would learn the various trades. Some would be sculptors. Some would be, in a sense, scribes. But again, in a sense, you learn these, in a sense, skills, these traditions through a process of apprenticeship. Children in Olmec culture traditionally learn through oral storytelling, proverbs, and practical experiences. They were taught the history, ethics, and values of the Olmec people. Initiation ceremonies such as circumcision for boys and coming-of-age rituals for girls are crucial in marking a child's transition into Olmec adulthood. These ceremonies often involve teaching about responsibility, community values, and the roles expected of them as adults. We have selected Olmec artifacts that show the boys being being circumcised. I haven't seen any art that really relates to female female initiation ceremonies, but we do have evidence. We do have a few statues of Olmec females, but we can see in a sense their role in the priestly class. Elders and griots, traditional storytellers and keepers of oral history, played a key role in educating Olmec children about their cultural heritage. Children participate in community ceremonies such as prayers and festivals. They were often involved in drumming, dancing, and singing during cultural and religious Olmec events. Boys are typically taught farming, herding, and other responsibilities that align with their future roles as providers and protectors of the family. This is very important to understand, and this is what causes some conflict in many societies in the Americas today. Is that the male was seen in a sense as the provider and protector, but as you know, often in the Western Hemisphere, because of the experience of slavery and white supremacy, often in a sense it's very difficult for men to play those roles as provider and protector because of the fact that in the New World and also in worldwide civilization, it's the white man who determines your employment, your job opportunities, everything. Just as Nelly Fuller said, because we're in a sense prisoners of war. But even though we're prisoners of war, we can still do some things, and we still have some responsibilities as a man to provide, in a sense, leadership for our families. And we want to also teach our sons, how to, in a sense, be men, so that they can lead the family. Girls often learn domestic skills such as cooking, weaving, and caring for younger siblings, preparing them for their roles as mothers and caretakers in Olmec society. In rural Olmec communities, children assist in farming, which was the backbone of the economy. They learned agricultural techniques and contribute to the family's livelihood. Some children take up apprenticeships under skilled adults, learning trades such as weaving or tailoring. Here's an artifact from the Olmecs. As you can see, we see this child who in a sense is being recognized by in a sense this adult, and this child in a sense is being instructed or at least showing in a sense that they can contribute also to society. And this is a very important thing to take into account. And this is very interesting. Also it's very interesting when you look at that hat of that Olmec adult, it looks as though there's a horn on it. And that's very interesting because we don't see any cattle among the early Americans and stuff like that. But they did have roads. And if they built roads, and we know in a sense that the Olmec had carts. So it has to be some evidence. Maybe eventually we'll find it. But it had to have been some sort of animal that they could use to pull those wheeled structures on those roads. Because why would you have a road if you didn't in a sense move stuff on? I mean, you wouldn't need a road to walk on. You could just make a path. So that's something that I'm thinking about, and hopefully in the future we can find some information and we'll be able to really elaborate on that aspect of Olmec culture. But some children took up apprenticeships under skilled adults, learning trades such as weaving, tailoring, farming, things like that. Olmec children were seen as the future of the Olmec community and were responsible for carrying forward its cultural and linguistic heritage. They learned Olmec traditions, values, and the Olmec Mandinka language to ensure cultural continuity. Through involvement in traditional ceremonies, the Olmec children actively engaged in preserving and celebrating their Olmec culture. Again, as I said earlier, the Olmec people were not related to the ancient Egyptians. Stop thinking that every civilization in Africa had to be descended from the Egyptians. No. The Olmec people, they spoke the Mandi language, and they wrote their inscriptions in the Vai script. That's why, in a sense, we see these inscriptions that the Olmec have left us that tell us their story and their history. Children were highly valued in Olmec culture as a source of joy, hope, and pride for families. They were believed to strengthen familial bonds and ensure the continuity of the family lineage. Yes. Just as we, just like we think about our children. For example, I had My wife, she gave me, 6 children, 5 boys and 1 girl, and I'm very happy that she did that. So, you develop these emotional bonds and spiritual bonds, and you relate this to your children. And the Olmecs did likewise. In the Olmec culture, having many children was often considered a blessing from God, and parents see them as a source of social and economic support in their latter years. Yes, you hope that they'll take care of you. Even today, we hope that they'll take care of us, even though I know that most of the time children they kind of gravitate a little to their mother. So I don't look forward to it, but I would be if I ended up in a nursing home. I mean, half my kids would be there. What can I say? But the Olmec people and traditional Black people, they didn't put their parents in under the care of someone that was not of their family. In Olmec religious tradition, children hold an essential role in the preservation, practice, and transmission of spiritual and cultural values. The religious traditions of the Olmec people are deeply intertwined, which has been a dominant influence for centuries, as well as residential. Here's an overview of the role of children in the Mandingo Olmec civilization. From birth, children are often dedicated to God through blessings and naming ceremonies. These rituals seek divine protection and guidance for the child's life. Very important. Again, in a sense, you want to do this. Back in, over here, we don't really have, many naming ceremonies. Usually just get together and the mother and father decide what the name is. They may, in a sense, give it to an older relative that they like a grandma, auntie, or whatever. But usually, in a sense, we don't have a naming ceremony. But the Olmecs, they did have a naming ceremony. The Olmec children, in a sense, they learned to be respectful, not only in a sense to adults, but they also learn to be respectful to each other. And this is something that's kind of terrible over here. Is that over here in the Americas, a lot of times we have a rite of passage, in high school, which is called, the dozens. And the dozens is when somebody, in a sense, will say something negative about your family, your mother, whatever. And you would go through this process of trying, in a sense, to put each other down. But it was a way, in a sense, to build you up too, because it made you get used to the fact that if people threw verbal weapons at you, that you wouldn't just give up, you just wouldn't fall down. And I think some of this may go back to the slavery experience, because often, in a sense, you had to go out into the real world, and when you went into the real world, a lot of times, in a sense, you would be confronted with white people who might call you all type of evil and vicious names. And I think that by learning, in a sense, to not allow, discordant or nasty names to bring you down, I think that made us a stronger people, and it made us be able, in a sense, to somewhat not be as, suffer as much trauma from our interactions with Europeans during slavery and even after slavery. Because even today, even up until very recently, and even today, things are just about the same. A lot of people, they think everything has changed, everything is different. They think, in a sense, that white people love you, and that white people want to help us. No, it's very difficult. White people cannot love you. I'm sorry to say, white people cannot, in a sense, always be sincere in trying to be with you, because the fact is that they've been conditioned by their parents, they've been conditioned by their community to hate you and to see you as being beneath them. Let's just face it. If you think somebody is beneath you, it's very difficult. It's almost impossible to really respect you. And real relationships, even in a sense, loving relationships, have to be built upon this whole idea of respect of you, of yourself, and respect of your significant other, and also respect of your offspring. And it's very hard to respect someone if you have negative imagery that surrounds that person. Because see, when you hear a lot of negative names and you hear a lot of evil, it develops, in a sense, negative ideations. What is an ideation? An ideation is the way you think, you see. So if you're constantly being surrounded by negativity, if you're constantly being put down, it can have a very traumatic and negative effect on you. And that's one of the reasons why I think Black people learn to play the dozens, so that you won't, in a sense, suffer a lot of trauma, you see, when you go into the greater society and they talk to you in a very negative fashion. A child's naming ceremony usually held 7 days after birth. The naming ceremony was a vital religious and cultural tradition. Prayers and blessings were recited, and the child's name is chosen, often reflecting the values of familial heritage. These ceremonies emphasize the child's integration into the community and their spiritual journey. We usually we don't really have naming ceremonies. Most of the time, in a sense, we the mom and dad decide on a name, but sometimes we give our kids nicknames, and often these nicknames may reflect their attitudes or their behavior. So a lot of times it's the nickname, in a sense, that comes later, that really, in a sense, identifies the child. It's very interesting. I think back sometimes that back when I was growing up, a lot of times you didn't even know the real names of your cousins until you guys got to be teenagers. Because a lot of times you always refer to each other by your nicknames instead of, in a sense, your name given by your mom, your legal name, so to speak. Elders, particularly religious teachers, focused on instilling religious knowledge in the Olmec children, ensuring the continuity of the native values and Olmec traditions. In addition to formal Olmec teachings, children learned religious and moral lessons through storytelling, proverbs, and songs that often blend Islamic and traditional Mandingo wisdom. Okay, look at this artifact. This is an Olmec artifact. Okay, as you can see in this Olmec artifact, in the front of this artifact, we see an Olmec adult, and he's holding a baby. You see, so that shows, in a sense, that the baby is given to you. Given to you in Olmec society as a blessing. And then on the side, you can see where we see the children. We see the child talking to the adult. You see, and we not only, in a sense, see the adult, the child listening to the adult. We see the adult listening to the child. See, and this is very important. A lot of times, growing up in Western society, growing up in this terrible American society dominated by Caucasians, they often want us to ignore what our children have to say. But sometimes you get a lot of wisdom. Sometimes you get a lot of knowledge. Last night, me and Eve, we were talking about, we kind of, in a sense, discussed somewhat this aspect of children, in a sense, also being able to contribute to civilization. And the Olmec people, they made sure, in a sense, to pay attention to their children, and they understood the important role that children can play in our life. The Stela number 5 from Azapa records many glyphic elements common to other pre-classics artifacts, including the jaguar, falling water, mountains, bird, dragon, tree, serpent, and fish models. This stela also provides many elements that relate to Mexican and Maya traditions, as accurately analyzed by Norman. Some ideological factors not fully discussed in regards to this stela is this discussion of elements of the Olmec religion and the migration traditions of the Mexicans. The Maya were not the first to occupy the Yucatan and Gulf regions of Mexico. It is evident from the Mayan traditions and the artifacts recovered from many ancient Mayan sites that there were other people in this region before the Maya arrived. The Pacific area was early colonized by Olmec people in the Middle Preclassic times. The Olmec civilization was developed along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, in the states of Tabasco and Veracruz. The linguistic evidence suggests that around 1200 BC, yes, 1200 BC, a new linguistic group arrived in the Gulf region in Mexico. Stela number 5 from Izapa, it talks about, in a sense, it allows you to really look at some of the aspects of the Mayan tradition. Fray Diego de Landa, in his book, Yucatan Before and After the Conquest. He wrote that, and I quote, "Some old men of Yucatan say that they have heard from their ancestors that this country was peopled by a certain race who came from the east, whom God delivered by opening for them 12 roads through the sea." Look at this stela. You see, when you look at this stela, what you see is that the people are on a boat. And you can see in a sense that they have images that the boat is on the water. But look at that tree. Look at that tree. That tree is very interesting because it has just about 12 roots. It has 12 roots. It had 12 roots. And what did Friar Diego de Landa tell us? Friar Diego de Landa, he said what? He said, some of the old men of Mexico, Yucatan, say that they have heard from their ancestors that this country was peopled by a certain race who came from the east, whom God delivered by opening for them 12 roads through the sea. And look at this on this boat. On stela number 5 from Mazapa, what do we see? We see five roots going into the water. Yes. The religious orders spoken in this stela are the bird and jaguar cults. The Olmec cults were Nama, or the humanoid jaguar cult, and Kuno, a bird cult. The leader of the Nama cult was called the Nama Tigi, or the Nama chief, or Amatigi, head of the faith. The leader of the Kuno cult was the Kuno Tigi, the Kuno chief, or the leader of the Kuno sect. These cult leaders initiated the Olmec into the mysteries of the cult. And so look at this. Here you can see the leader of the bird cult. The bird cult, he kind of had a kind of a conical hat, and we can see that the members of the bird cult, they kind of wore a kind of conical hat. But we can see the members of the jaguar cult, on the other hand, as you can see on the right hand side, they seem to have wore the familiar skull caps and helmets associated with the giant heads of the Olmec people. But we can see in a sense clearly on stela number 5 from Izapa, we can see these two different religious traditions. On the stela number 5, we see both the Kunatigi and the Namatigi, instructing youth in the mysteries of their respective cultures. On stela number 5, we see two priests and members of each cult society sitting in a boat with a tree in the center. On the right-hand side of the boat, we see the Namatigi, and on the left-hand side, we see the Kunotigi. Here you can now see the depiction of these cult leaders that are taken from stela number 5 from Izapa. Leo Weiner wrote that, and I quote, that the kingly and priestly cap of the Magi should have been preserved in America in the identical form with the identical decoration, and should besides have kept the name current for it among the Mandi people, makes it impossible to admit any other solution than the one that the Mandingos established the royal offices in Mexico. And so look at that. Again, here we see what? We see the priest with the conical hat. And it was Leo Weiner. It was Leo Weiner, in a sense, who first recognized that this conical hat related, in a sense, to the Mandingo culture. Think about that. You see, as I said, many people will tell you that the Olmec people were related to the ancient Egyptians. No. They were not related to the ancient Egyptians. The Olmec people were Mandingo people. And again, in a sense, we keep seeing this evidence, not only in their language, but we also see, when we look at this stela number 5, when we look at the conical hat worn by the Olmec priest, as you can see, and while he's instructing the child, this goes back to what? It goes back to the Mandingo people. Yes. The Olmec were Mandingo people who spoke a Mandi language. They were not Egyptians. On the left-hand side of the boat, we see a number of birds. Here we also find a priest wearing a conical hat, instructing another youth in the mysteries of the Kuno cult around the flame. Do you see that? See the conical hat in it? And if you can see, right in the center in a sense, between the priest and the child, we see what? We see that luminous flame. We see that fire. Among the Olmec, this flame signified the luminous character of knowledge. The Kuno priest wears a conical hat. The evidence of the conical hat on the Kuno priest is important evidence of the manding in ancient America. The conical hat in Mesoamerica is associated with the Amerindian priesthood and a symbol of political and religious authority. Okay, here in a sense you can see on the Stela number 5, you can see the luminous character, and here we can see in a sense an Olmec child. Look on the right hand side, the bottom, and you can see this child holding the flame. Yes, the flame, played an important role, and this flame in a sense was probably meaning what it was showing in a sense that the child was to learn this important knowledge, so the child would be able, in a sense, to carry on the culture and traditions of the Olmec people. The personage on the right-hand side of the boat under a ceremonial umbrella is the Namatigi. In Mexico, this umbrella was a symbol of priestly status. Above his head is a jaguar glyph, which, according to Dr. Alexander von Woodnall, indicates that he was an Olmec. On the top on the right-hand side, you can see the Stela number 5, and then at the bottom, in a sense, under this, I've taken out, in a sense, the Olmec leader, and you can see him under the umbrella, and you can see there's an individual behind him holding up the umbrella, and he's in a sense instructing the child. But if you notice, he's wearing a skull cap. He's not wearing a conical hat like the other priests. See, there was 2 different religious groups, and they played different roles in the Olmec society. And so the children, in a sense, had to learn their own religious tradition, depending upon whatever cult or sect they belong to. I guess it's kind of like today you see some people who everybody believes in Christianity in the Americas. Everybody believes in Jesus Christ. And yet the Catholics, they have a different religious tradition, in the Catholic Church, as opposed to those people who are in the Protestant Church. Both groups, in a sense, worship, in a sense, God, and they both, in a sense, recognize Jesus as the Son of God. But the practices among the believers in the Protestant Church and believers in the Catholic Church are slightly different. And this would kind of help you to understand how it was in Mexico, where they had the bird coat and they had the jaguar coat. The Namatigi, when you look at this in this particular priest, you can see the person has an African style hairdo and writing stylus in his left hand. This indicates that the knowledge of writing among the Olmecs, which is also evident in the Olmec inscriptions. As you can see how we've shown the writing. This was a literate class. Yes, as I try to teach you, family, every week, is that our ancestors were not illiterate. Our ancestors did not just practice an oral culture. Our ancestors have had writing for over 10,000 years. Don't get it twisted, you see? But they want you to believe that our culture has always been an oral culture. No. As evidence in this particular, on the Stela number 5, we always had writing. The bird god gives the chld, a soldier in the army, a book of enlightenment. This is also in the artifact. As you can see, we see this helmeted figure. I interpret this helmeted figure as a soldier. As you can see, the bird god, you can see the bird beak, and you can see that he's handing this Olmec soldier. He's handing this Olmec soldier. You can see the helmet, or leather helmet or whatever it was made of, and you can see that the bird is giving him a book. You see. The helmeted man probably represents both the soldier and also the craftsman class. This class would represent the smiths, the artists, and sculptors, and maybe even the rulers. So again, in a sense, we see that this figure is being given, you see, this particular knowledge. And today, because I was able, in a sense, to find that many of the helmet glyphs on the Olmec heads, many of these helmet glyphs, in a sense, these helmets tell the names of the people who were the kings represented on these heads. You see, like here's some of the San Lorenzo head. Head number one, the king was named Queda Poda. You know, head number two from San Lorenzo, his name was Gebe Solasaba. You know, head number three from San Lorenzo, his name was Bipopo. And head number four from San Lorenzo was named Potu. So again, in a sense, that's why it was very important. It was very important that after I, in a sense, was able to decipher the Olmec writing, I was able, in a sense, to find the names of these people. You see, and the names were right in front of our faces. See, that's the thing. A lot of times, in a sense, Europeans make it appear. Yes, Europeans, you know, they like to make it appear that somehow history is mysterious. A lot of times, Europeans, they want to make it appear that this is something new. You see, they want you to really feel. They want you to really feel that there's not too much that the ancient people did, because they don't want you to compare the great civilization that our black ancestors had to their civilization, because their civilization is juvenile. Yeah, they have maybe buildings made of stone, and maybe they have cars, but we made mostly all those inventions. They didn't make it. You see, but they don't want you to know the reality of the greatness of our civilization. But that's why you come here every week to join me on Black History Gems. Yes, you come to hear the Black History Gems so you can get the facts, so you can get the real knowledge, so you can get that real lingo and understand what was really going on, you know. See, so this is why you're here. The bird god gives the chld, the soldier in the army, a book of enlightenment. Olmec fishes are explained by the Mandingo religion. Also on Stela number 5, we see these fishes. In the Mandy creation story, the god Mangala made twin pairs of seeds to represent the opposite sexes of mankind. The twins were named Pimba and Pharaoh. These two fishes in the Olmec creation story represent Pharaoh, who was cut into pieces when it fell to earth and became trees. Mangala remade Pharaoh and sent him down to earth in an ark made from the placenta of the earth or egg. The ark held the animals, males and females, and the plants. So again, in the sense is that, again, you see, that's what makes Stela number 5 from Azapa so interesting. It's telling you, it's telling us, it's telling me the religion of the Olmec, and it's also telling us about how children, in a sense, what they had to learn, what they had to know, so they could become full members of their societies, you see. On the side of the bow, we see 2 Olmec signs that read, "In the company of purity." These are the signs. A pyramid, and then we see kind of a block, like something from a Lego. And it means, in a sense, in the company of purity. This statement signifies that the Olmec believed that worship of the Kuna or Nama cults led to spiritual purity among the believers. Yes. Fray Diego de Landa, I repeat, he wrote, and I quote, "Some old men of Yucatec say that they have heard from their ancestors that this country was peopled by a certain race who came from the east, whom God delivered by opening for them 12 roads through the sea." Let's look at that Zappa, that Stela number 5. In the center of the boat on Stela number 5, we find a large tree. This tree has 8 branches and 12 roots. Yes, 8 branches and 12 roots. The 8 branches probably represent the major clans of the Olmec people. The 12 rows of the tree extending into the water from the boat probably signifies the 12 roads through the sea, mentioned by Friar Diego Landa. The migration tradition on Stela number 5 probably relate to a segment of the Olmec who landed in boats in Panota or Pantala and moved along the coast as far as Guatemala. This would correspond to the non-Maya speaking group detected by Swadesh that separated the Maya and Huasteca speakers 2,000 years ago. Bernardo de Sagan A famous authority on Mexico also supports this extra-American origin of the Olmecs when he wrote that, and I quote, Eastern settlers of Mexico landed at Panatla on the Mexican coast. Yeah, golf. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that they mentioned that they mentioned 12 roads through the sea, and then we have the Stela, and it has the tree and the roots of what? 12 roots. 12 roots going into the sea. You see? What do I tell you, family, every week? What do I tell you every week, family? I'm going to tell you what I tell you. Every week I tell you that our ancestors are leaving us messages right in front of our eyes. Right in front of our eyes. But these messages are not secrets. These messages are in plain sight. The only problem is that often we fail to detect them. Also, when we look at the Stela, when we look at the Stela from Stela number 1, you see. Look at Stela number 1. As you can see, we see the tree, we see the pictures, you see the boats, you see the men who are instructing the youth in the boats. Well, an interesting thing is that when you look at this, one of the things that is very prominent and very evident is the whole idea is that we see that there's this faceless human right here on the left-hand side. Here we see a faceless human being who is touching the tree of knowledge. This represents the idea that any man, this is deep. This represents the idea that any man can find knowledge from the craftsman, from the kuna and the nama priest. Yes, yes. That's why this figure is left faceless. If you notice, all the other figures, you can see the eyes, the nose, all the features that you see on the face. But this particular person, in a sense, who's touching the tree, he's faceless, you see? And that's to show what? That anybody can learn the knowledge if you study under the masters. The fact that everything is on a boat represents the ark pharaoh, used to bring civilization to mankind. The faceless man is also down near the roots. This suggests that it also demands that the man or woman know their origin roots so they can be progressive. Yes, yes, yes. That's why, a lot of times I look at Tariq, and Tariq is talking to some people, and then a lot of times, in a sense, he can tell a person's an immigrant when he says, "Where are you from?" And then they'll say, "Oh, I'm from America." And he'll say, "Where your family from?" And then they'll say, "Oh, America." Whereas we know just like when we ask somebody where your family from, we know that they're either going to say what, like, for example, if somebody asks me where my family from, I'm gonna say Mississippi, and because that's where both of my parents came from, Mississippi. Whereas my mother-in-law, her family came from Arkansas. Yes, we're always referring back. That's not nothing that's secret. But to people who are foreign, they don't understand how Black people look to their roots. And we can see that when we look at Stela number 5, they were also talking about the roots. They were also talking about the roots that allow us to be who and what we are. They allow you to be you and me to be me. You see? Okay, let's look at it again. On the right-hand side, you can see the Stela, the Azapa Stela. At the top of Stela number 5, we recognize 2 lines of Olmec writing across the top of the artifact. Take a look over there on the right-hand side. You can see that the top of Stela number 5 from Azapa. Okay. On the first line, we read from right to left. Ibai, Lutulu, Ibai, which means thou art powerful now. Hold upright those obedient to their order. Thou art powerful now. On the second line, we read the following, Ilubi, Ilu, which means thou hold upright the unity. Thou hold it upright. Yes, it's just, see, they're different because, it's important is that you have to have some faith. You're lost. You're lost if you don't have any faith. You're lost if you don't have any faith, you see? See? Then, okay, look at the second, we see the top line. Ibalutulu, Ibahai. You see? And then we see the bottom signs, Iluve Ilu. In other words, it says, thou art upright now. Hold upright those obedient to their order. Thou art powerful now. Thou hold upright unity. Thou hold it upright. Yes, yes, yes. On the side of the bow, we see two Olmec signs. They read, in the company of purity. Yes, yes. These signs read, in the company of purity. See right here, there's the boat. You see on the left-hand side of the roots. See on the left-hand side of roots. That's where we find those two signs that I just talked about. And those two signs are in the company of purity. You see, the bottom of his Zappa makes it clear that the Olmec sailed to Mexico as mentioned in the migration stories of Mexico. A lot of people want to tell you in a sense that the Olmecs were descendants of people who were already in Mexico. No, 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 no. Zappa Stela number 5 makes it clear that the Olmec people were not, in a sense, they did not always live in Mexico. Stela number 5 shows that they came to Mexico by sea. Yes, they came by sea. If anybody tries to tell you that the Olmecs, in a sense, were always, living in the Americas and their descendants of other people in Mexico, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that there weren't black people already in Mexico. There were. There were black people already in Mexico, but the Olmec were black people that came to Mexico from Africa. That's why, in a sense, they have the boat and they have the roots, and they have the roots going into the sea to show that they had sailed to Mexico from, in a sense, Africa. And it also matches the various migration stories that many other people in Mexico continue to talk about today. Stela number 5 of Zappa provides the story behind the Mandinga migration to America. It dates to around 1200 BC and gives us a detailed account of the separation of the Olmec religion and people into two major religious groups. Stela number 5 of Zappa, I quote, therefore is an important historical document because it tells us who the Olmecs were. Yes, yes, yes. Stela number 5. This is an artist rendering where they try to color up the Stela. The Stela, the original Stela, as I've shown you, is not in color, but this is where an artist colored up the Stela. And this is I really like the fact that this artist did color many of the elements, because then, in a sense, you can see more clearly. You can see the various priests on the left hand, right hand side. You can see the bird handing the man the knowledge of wisdom. You can see the roots into the sea. You can see the tree. You can see the fishes. Again, this is very beautiful. Whoever did this, I compliment him on his use of color to really bring out Stela number 5 from Zappa, because Stela number 5 from Zappa tells us the history and the story of the Olmec people. Children were taught to embody virtues such as honesty, respect, kindness, and humility, which were core, in a sense, Olmec principles. Olmec religious practices emphasize the collective responsibility of raising children with strong moral character, reflecting well on the family and the community. Olmec families retain traditional beliefs in the spiritual power of ancestors and nature. Children were able to participate in rituals that seek blessings or protection from ancestors or natural forces. Olmec children also would wear protective amulets, gris, often containing, verses or prayers to shield them from harm and evil spirits. Today, Mandingo children often wear verses from the Quran, around their necks. Back in the day, the verses, in a sense, that the Olmec children would have pertained to the Kuna and the Nama coach, which would have been the bird and the jaguar coach. I'm going to one day I'll probably go into detail. I've talked a little bit about religion, but I don't show many of the practices, because you'll find that many other people belong to the bird cult. They used to like to have a lot of paddles. I still, maybe somebody out there, maybe some of you guys have read about how the paddles were used in Africa. That can maybe explain it, because I look at these paddles, I don't really understand what they were used for. But a lot of times during circumcision ceremonies, the priests would hold paddles. But again, in a sense, it's very important to understand that the Olmec had a very rich culture. The Olmec had a rich culture in which they wanted to incorporate into this culture, in a sense, the children, their artifacts, their art, even the buildings that they made. All of these things were relating back to their culture, back to what made them who and what they were. And children had to learn these things, because by understanding your culture, you understand your identity. Yes, your culture gives you your identity. It tells you who you were. Parental responsibility. Parents and extended family members were expected to guide children in their spiritual development, ensuring they understand and adhere to the teachings of their community. Today, it's Islam. Community, religious leaders or marabouts often serve as mentors for children, often offering spiritual guidance and blessings. So we can imagine, as you can see, that the same thing took place in Olmec society. See, let's go back to this statue. As you can see, when we look at this Olmec statue, you can see that child and that adult are in an intimate relationship. You see, that child is giving the adult wisdom after the adult is giving them wisdom. In other words, in the sense is that don't ignore what your children have to say. Sometimes your children can be giving you some valuable insights and valuable wisdom and valuable knowledge. You see, but the European, he teaches us, he wants to make us believe that our children, don't worry, don't listen to those kids. They don't know what they're talking about. Don't go in that direction, you see. But our children, they retain our values. They can guide us and they can help us to become, much more better people. Religious rites of passage such as circumcision for boys and sometimes similar ceremonies for girls, among the Olmec, was a mark of transition from childhood to spiritual maturity. Upon reaching adolescence, Olmec children were expected to take on more responsibilities and religious practices, such as, that things that would occur in the community. In conclusion, children in Olmec religious traditions are seen as vital to the continuation of faith and cultural heritage by instilling spiritual values early and integrating children into communal practices. The Mandingo people, who form the backbone or the foundation of the Olmec people, ensured that the religious and moral fabric of their society remains strong for future generations. Today, most of the Mandingo are Muslims, but the Mandingo traditional religion, in a sense, had the values too. Again, if you want to find out more about the Olmec children and the Olmec civilization period, get my book, Olmec Language and Literature, which will tell you the language they spoke, and also get my book, Atlantis and Mexico. Get these books, because when you get these books, what they're going to do is that these books are going to help you to learn more about the Olmec people. It'll help you to understand that the Olmec people were, in a sense, a Mandi speaking people. And this is important knowledge. Again, it's important. It's important that we always keep this in mind, And I appreciate so much that you guys come. Create so far, Sister Shanice said, I agree. There were parallels in ancient African society, each great in their own right. True. The ancient societies in America were great, but the societies, in a sense, in various parts of the diaspora were great too. And this is things we need to know. Create So Far said, let's see what Create So Far said. Dr. Winters, check out the song by Big Daddy Kane called Children Are the Future. It'll blow your mind. Yes. As I said before, we even recognize this in the diaspora. We recognize the important role, in a sense, that understanding who we are and children in terms of our history, Sister Shanice noted that, she said, Dr. Clyde, children often get overlooked in history. I am thoroughly I have thoroughly enjoyed your interpretation and analysis of the role of children in the Olmec society. Thank you, Shanice. But the thing is this, is that it's often overlooked. I remember, that sometimes as men, because of the fact that we work a lot and often, only on the weekends, maybe after work if you're not too tired and grumpy, a lot of times in a sense we don't really begin to see the important role that children play in our lives and that children play in our society. But as I discussed in this discussion of the Olmec children and their also appearance in the traditional Mandy society, you can see in a sense that the child plays an important role in our culture, and the child should not just in a sense play an important role in our heart, which my children are very important to me. I thank God every day that my wife gave me children, because even though she's not here with me today, I still have my children, and I still have them to talk to relate to, and to love. And there's nothing wrong with love. And see, this is something, a lot of people may get mad at me, but I don't care if you get mad at me. I know the important role that love's played, even as a man, because as a man, often in a sense, often we have to always be strong. I remember, my kid never saw me cry until my wife died. I mean, hey, I may have cried by myself, but you never cried in front of your children because you wanted to always show that strength. But even though we want to show that strength, we also, in a sense, need, in a sense, to recognize it. Dorvell said, "Were the Olmec related to the Dogon?" The Olmec, in a sense, the Olmec would have been the Dogon and Mandi people. They share many similar religious beliefs. So in a way, you could say the Olmec would be related to the Dogon, Mandi, but again, in a sense, is that these were just people who brought to their culture. Because it's very important to understand is that you many African groups are mixed up, and that because of the fact that they're mixed up, they in a sense carry varied traditions. In the government concept, among African people is the federation. What is the federation? The federation, in a sense, is that I can belong to the Akan nation, you can belong to the Igbo in a sense community, but because of the fact, in the sense that they were all part of a greater, let's say the Songhai civilization, although we belong to various communities speaking different languages, we're still part of the total community, because that's what makes us, in a sense, members of that federated state. It's just like when you think about ancient Egypt. There was no monolithic Egyptian. If you really study Egyptian history, often many of the various Egyptian communities or cities, they had in a sense their own gods that they worship. You see, so it's very important to understand is that when you're trying, in a sense, to understand these relationships, an important thing to always keep in mind is that the Olmec, like African people or Black people generally, you see, and now some of you may get mad if I say African people, but I'm going to say African people because that's our ancestry. Even though personally my heritage would be Choctaw, because but my wife on the other hand, my baby doll, her father was Cherokee, and her mother, in a sense, and her mother was a different Indian group, see, Blackfoot. So she had Cherokee and Blackfoot background, whereas in my family we come from the Choctaw. So I mean that's all type of tribe. I mean, just like in Africa, you have people who are Igbos. Then you got people in Nigeria who are Igbos, Yoruba, Ibio, Hausa, Fulani. Those are 5 different ethnic groups, but they all live in the modern country that we call today Nigeria, you see. So again, in a sense, but what we have to understand is that we do have we are one people, we're African people, and because we're African people and Black people generally, we should, in a sense, try to love each other and get along with each other. One of the things that I hate There's one thing I hate about, that I hate that I had to discover in studying our history. And what I discovered is this. I discovered in the sense that sometimes as Black people, we're harder on each other. We're harder on each other than we are on these foreign people. These foreign people, we can forgive Asians and we can forgive Caucasians, but then sometimes it's very hard for us to forgive another Black person. And this is sad. Let's see, Create Surprise said, Dr. Winters, check out the song I'm an African by hip hop. Okay, yeah. It's by the hip hop duo Dead Prayers. It'll make you proud. Yes. Our music, in a sense, relates to it because our music goes back to our culture, our unique culture as foundational Black Americans. Yes. Again, in a sense, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you want to find out more about this presentation, get my books. Get my books on the Olmecs, the Olmec language and literature, Atlantis and Mexico, and some of my other books. Because these books, in a sense, will be able to help you to learn out more about the children among the Olmecs and also the general their society. But what's important to remember is this. Don't get it twisted. You can have an Aboriginal origin. My background, according to my family, is Choctaw. My wife, my baby doll, her background family was Blackfeet and Cherokee. That doesn't matter. You see, the thing that has destroyed Black people over the years that we're always wanting to be somebody else. We're always wanting to just bring up our heritage and ignore, in a sense, our ancestry. You see, but we have to unify around the fact that we are Black people with an African ancestry, even though our heritages may be Choctaw, Black European, etc., etc., etc. But the most important thing we need to know is that stop tripping, love each other, love yourselves. Thank you guys for coming. And like Dorville says, we have to get away from CAIDS. Get away from CAIDS. What is CAIDS? Culturally acquired immune identity deficiency syndrome. And CAIDS is when you lose your identity. And how do you lose your identity? You lose your identity by, in a sense, refusing to recognize who you are and what you are. You see what I'm saying? You see? Remember the Egyptians, they called themselves Kemetic, they called themselves Black. They were not a crayon color. Get out of here. They were just like us, some light skin, some dark skin, some red bone, etc., 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 etc. Some with straight hair, some with kinky hair, some with curly hair, etc., etc., etc. See? But the Blackness unifies us. And how does Blackness unify us? Because when we look into the sky, it's black out there, right? When we look into the sky, the night sky, or when we look into a telescope, it's black out there in space. But we know, in a sense, that blackness represents God, and we're all in the hands of God, because it's God who controls. It's God who has everything. But we have to, in a sense, love ourselves. We have to run away from CAIDS, culturally acquired immune identity deficiency syndrome. Run away from CAIDS, because that pandemic is what's going to destroy us. Again, thank you guys for coming here, and thank you for sharing. Right now, press that like button. Right, don't forget, press the like button. Subscribe. Tell your friends and family to look at this video and share this video with your friends and family. Because, see, we're one, but we need more people to know our real history and not this fake history that Europeans have given us. We have to know our real history. And in knowing our real history, we will know the truth. And by knowing the truth, we will definitely, in a sense, be much more better off, because we won't be in darkness. We won't be in ignorance. We'll understand, in a sense, that, hey, that we're Black. The only thing that can save you is be one, be one, be one. To fight CAIDS, you must stay Black.